What if I told you that the number one food destroying your heart right now is not butter, it is not red meat, it is not even fried chicken? What if I told you that this one single food is sitting in your kitchen right now, probably in your pantry, probably in your refrigerator, and you have been eating it every single day, thinking it is perfectly safe? In fact, you might have even been told by someone that it is healthy. You might have seen it marketed as a heart-friendly option, and yet this food is silently inflaming your arteries. It is silently stiffening your blood vessels, and it is pushing millions of people closer and closer to a heart attack every single year. And the craziest part about all of this is that most doctors are not even talking about it. They are still focused on cholesterol. They are still writing prescriptions for statins. They are still telling you to cut out eggs and avoid saturated fat. And meanwhile, this one food is doing more damage to your cardiovascular system than cholesterol ever could. Now, I know that sounds like a bold claim. I know some of you watching right now are thinking, come on, Dr. Martin, that cannot be true. But stay with me, because by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly what this food is, exactly how it is damaging your heart, and exactly what you need to do starting today to protect yourself and your family. I am Senior Health, and I have spent over 2 decades studying cardiovascular disease, working with patients who have had heart attacks, working with patients who are on the verge of having one, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that what I am about to share with you today could genuinely save your life. So let me take you back to something that happened in my clinic not too long ago. A gentleman came in, I will call him Robert, 52 years old, looked like the picture of health. He exercised regularly. He did not smoke. He did not drink excessively, and his cholesterol numbers were actually pretty good. His LDO is within normal range. His HDO was decent. His total cholesterol was fine on paper. This man should have had a perfectly healthy heart. And yet Robert came to me because he had been experiencing tightness in his chest, shortness of breath when he climbed stairs, and occasional pain that radiated down his left arm. We ran some tests. We did an angiogram, and what we found shocked even me. Robert had significant plaque buildup in his coronary arteries. He was heading straight toward a major cardiac event. Now, here is what is important. His cholesterol was fine. So what was causing this? What was silently destroying the seemingly healthy man's arteries? And after a deep dive into his diet, his lifestyle, his blood markers beyond just cholesterol, we found the culprit, and the culprit was something Robert had been consuming every single day of his life for the past 30 years. And that food, that one food, is refined sugar now. Before you click away, before you say, oh, I have heard this before, I already know sugar is bad. Let me ask you something. If you already know sugar is bad, then why are you still eating it? Because here is the truth. The average person is consuming somewhere between 17 to 22 teaspoons of added sugar every single day. That is roughly 3 to 4 times the amount that the American Heart Association recommends. And most people do not even realize they are doing it. They think they are being careful. They think they are making healthy choices, but sugar is hidden in places you would never expect, and it is wreaking absolute havoc on your cardiovascular system in ways that go far beyond what cholesterol has ever done. Let me explain the science to you, because I think once you understand the mechanism, once you understand what is actually happening inside your body when you consume excess refined sugar, you will never look at it the same way again when you eat sugar. And I'm talking about refined sugar, added sugar, processed sugar. Your blood glucose spikes rapidly. Now, your body is designed to handle some glucose that is normal. That is how your cells get energy. But when you flood your system with excessive amounts of sugar day after day after day, something very dangerous starts to happen. Your pancreas has to pump out more and more insulin to try to bring that blood sugar down. So over time, your cells become resistant to insulin. This is what we call insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is not just a precursor to type 2 diabetes. It is one of the most powerful drivers of cardiovascular disease that exists here. Is why when you have insulin resistance, your body enters a state of chronic low-grade inflammation. And inflammation is the real killer when it comes to heart disease. You see, for decades, we were told that cholesterol was the enemy. We were told that cholesterol builds up in your arteries and clogs them like grease in a pipe. But that is an oversimplification. The reality is that cholesterol only becomes dangerous when it is oxidized, when it is damaged. And what causes that oxidation and damage is inflammation. And what is one of the most potent drivers of chronic inflammation in the human body? Excess refined sugar. So think about it this way. Cholesterol is like a passenger in a car. Inflammation is the drunk driver behind the wheel. You can have cholesterol in your blood all day long, and it does not necessarily cause a problem. But when you add chronic inflammation to the mix, that cholesterol gets damaged, it penetrates the walls of your arteries, your immune system reacts, plaque builds up, and suddenly you're on the fast track to a heart attack, and it gets worse. Refined sugar does not just cause inflammation, it also raises your triglycerides. Now, triglycerides are a type of fat in your blood, and elevated triglycerides are one of the strongest independent predictors of heart disease. When you eat excess sugar, your liver converts that sugar into triglycerides. Your liver literally turns sugar into fat, and that fat circulates through your bloodstream, contributes to plaque formation, and increases your risk of a cardiac event. Studies have shown that people with high triglyceride levels have a significantly higher risk of heart attack and stroke, even when their cholesterol levels are normal. And what drives triglycerides up more than almost anything else? Not dietary fat, not eggs, not butter sugar, refined, processed sugar. But wait, there is more, and I know I sound like an infomercial right now, but I am dead serious about this. Refined sugar also damages the endothelium. The endothelium is the thin, delicate lining of your blood vessels. It is like the inner coating of a garden hose. When your endothelium is healthy, your blood vessels are flexible, they can dilate properly, blood flows smoothly, and everything works the way it should. But when excess sugar is constantly bombarding your endothelium, it causes direct damage to those cells. The endothelium becomes dysfunctional, your blood vessels become stiff, they lose their ability to dilate properly, blood pressure goes up, and now you have another major risk factor for heart disease, all because of sugar. And here is something that most people do not know, and most doctors are not telling their patients. There was a massive cover-up in the 1960s. The sugar industry literally paid scientists at Harvard University to downplay the role of sugar in heart disease and instead point the finger at saturated fat and cholesterol. This was published and exposed in a paper in JAMA Internal Medicine back in 2016. The sugar industry funded research that shaped decades of nutritional policy. They shifted the blame away from sugar and onto fat. And as a result, we got the low-fat craze of the 1980s and 90s. Everything became low-fat. But when you take fat out of food, it tastes terrible. So what did the food manufacturers do? They pumped everything full of sugar to make it taste good again. Low-fat yogurt loaded with sugar, low-fat salad, dressings loaded with sugar, low-fat cookies, low-fat crackers, low-fat everything, all loaded with sugar. And what happened? Heart disease rates did not go down. They went up. Obesity rates skyrocketed. Diabetes rates exploded. And we were all told to keep avoiding fat and keep eating these so-called heart-healthy, low-fat foods that were secretly full of the very thing that was actually killing us. Now, I want to be very clear about something when I say sugar. I'm not talking about the natural sugars found in whole fruits. When you eat an apple or a handful of berries, yes, there is sugar in there, but it comes packaged with fiber, with vitamins, with minerals, with antioxidants. The fiber slows down the absorption of that sugar, so your blood glucose does not spike dramatically. Whole fruits are not the problem. The problem is refined added sugar, the sugar in soda, the sugar in candy, the sugar in pastries and cakes, the sugar in breakfast cereals, the sugar in granola bars, the sugar in flavored coffee drinks, the sugar in fruit juices that have had all the fiber stripped away, the sugar in ketchup and barbecue sauce and pasta sauce and bread. Yes, bread. Most commercial breads have added sugar in them. And this is what I mean when I say sugar is hiding everywhere. Let me give you some real numbers to put this in perspective. A single can of regular soda contains about 39 grams of sugar. That is almost 10 teaspoons of sugar in one drink. The American Heart Association recommends that men consume no more than 9 teaspoons of added sugar per day and women no more than 6 teaspoons per day. So 1 can of soda and you've already blown past your entire daily limit. A grand flavored latte from your favorite coffee shop can have upwards of 40 to 50 grams of sugar. A single serving of many popular breakfast cereals has 12 to 16 grams of sugar. A flavored yogurt can have 20 to 25 grams of sugar, and people are having all of these things in a single day and wondering why their health is deteriorating. So what do? How do you actually make this change in a practical, real-world way? Because I am not one of those doctors who just tells you what is wrong and then sends you on your way. I want to give you actionable steps you can start implementing today. First thing you need to do is become a label reader every time you pick up a food product at the grocery store. Flip it over and look at the nutrition facts panel. Look at the added sugars line, not total sugars, but added sugars. The FDA now requires that added sugars be listed separately on the nutrition label. And that is a good thing. You want to be aiming for as close to 0 grams of added sugar as possible in the foods you buy, and check the ingredient list too. Sugar goes by dozens of different names: high fructose corn syrup, cane sugar, dextrose, maltose, sucrose, corn syrup, solids, agave, nectar, rice syrup, barley, malt. If you see any of these near the top of the ingredient list, put that product back on the shelf. Second thing I want you to do is eliminate sugary beverages entirely. This is the single biggest source of added sugar in most people's diets, and it is also the easiest one to cut out. Stop drinking soda, stop drinking fruit juice, stop drinking sweetened teas and energy drinks and fancy coffee concoctions loaded with syrups and whipped cream. Drink water, drink unsweetened tea, drink black coffee. If you want some flavor in your water, squeeze in some fresh lemon or lime, or add some cucumber slices or fresh mint. But get the liquid sugar out of your life, because liquid sugar is the most dangerous form. It hits your bloodstream faster than any other form. It spikes your blood glucose and insulin more dramatically, and it does not trigger the same satiety signals that solid food does, so you end up consuming way more of it. Now, I want to talk about something called advanced glycation in products, or AGEs for short, because this is another mechanism by which sugar destroys your cardiovascular system. And almost nobody is talking about it when excess sugar circulates in your blood. It reacts with proteins and fats in a process called glycation. This creates these harmful compounds called advanced glycation in products, and these AGEs are incredibly damaging to your blood vessels. They cause cross-linking of proteins in your arterial walls, making them stiff and rigid. They trigger inflammation. They promote oxidative stress. They accelerate the aging of your entire cardiovascular system. In fact, the name AGEs is quite fitting because they literally age your body from the inside out. And the more sugar you consume, the more AGEs you produce, and the faster your cardiovascular system deteriorates. I have patients who come to me and they say, "Dr. Martin, my father had a heart attack at 55 and I am terrified. I am going to have one too." And yes, genetics play a role. I would never deny that. But your genes are not your destiny. Your lifestyle choices, and specifically your dietary choices, have an enormous influence on whether those genetic predispositions actually manifest as disease. And one of the single most impactful things you can do to protect your heart, regardless of your genetic background, is to dramatically reduce your intake of refined sugar. Fifth, focus on building your meals around whole, unprocessed foods: vegetables, fruits, lean proteins, healthy fats from sources like avocados and nuts and olive oil, whole grains, legumes, seeds. These are the foods that your body was designed to run on. These are the foods that reduce inflammation, support healthy endothelial function, keep your triglycerides in check, and protect your heart. You do not need to follow some complicated, trendy diet. You do not need to buy expensive supplements. You just need to eat real food and stop eating sugar. It really is that simple in principle, even though I know it is not always easy in practice. And let me talk about this for a moment, because I want to be compassionate and realistic here. Quitting sugar is hard. I am not going to sugarcoat that, pun intended. Sugar is everywhere in our food supply, and it is addictive. When you first start cutting it out, you may experience withdrawal symptoms, headaches, irritability, fatigue, intense cravings. This is normal, and it usually passes within a week or two. Push through it. The other side is worth it. I have seen patients completely transform their health in a matter of months simply by reducing their sugar intake. I have seen triglycerides drop by 50%. I've seen inflammatory markers like C, reactive protein, normalize. I've seen blood pressure come down. I've seen patients reduce or eliminate their medications. The power of removing this one substance from your diet is truly remarkable. Now, let me come back to Robert for a moment, the patient I mentioned at the beginning of this video after we identified that